Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. Kansas is obviously, a very historic basketball program, as I'm sure you know. I don't know. Seems like the season's going okay for Kansas, right? Okay.
Yeah, we're doing pretty well. We had a crazy win on Tuesday. We were down 16 with like 3.5 minutes left and ended up
Yeah.
winning.
Awesome. Is Darren Peterson on Kansas?
Yeah,
Okay.
he
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's a stud. I actually went to the Kansas North Carolina championship game. When was that?
Nice.
3 years ago?
Yeah,
Something like that.
2022.
Yeah. I got the opportunity to go to that through my first sports job. We had a sales competition, and I was able to get tickets because it was in New Orleans, and I worked for the G League team that was under the Pelicans umbrella. So, anyways, my background. So I went to school at Auburn University here in Alabama, about 2 hours south east of Birmingham, and then I kind of always had a love for sports. And Auburn didn't really have any majors that were centered around sports. We had a graduate minor, I think, but nothing that would really propel me to that next level. So I decided to go to grad school at Troy University, which is a smaller school, about UAB's level, I'd say. In a different conference, similar size and everything. But they are. I went to grad school for sport management, so it was more focused on sports and kind of learning about the industry and different ways to get in the industry, but struggled to get a job after that. So I did kind of some sales roles in different capacities. To my first job in 2019 after graduation was at a home and truck accessories store. And I had never owned a truck in my life. So it was learning a whole new world of truck beds and hitches and all sorts of stuff, lift kits but it was fun. It was a good experience, and I learned a lot, and learned kind of how to talk to people and how to sell. And it was a good opportunity. And then COVID kind of came around, and um, at the time was living with my parents who were a little bit older, and so I decided to quit my job just for their health and safety, just because we didn't understand COVID or anything at the time, and
Yeah.
took a little bit of a hiatus from the job world. And then kind of when things settled down a little bit, took a job with someone that I went to church with when I was young, at a company called Kindle Electric. And I was selling electrical parts, anything from like conduit to, light switches to all sorts of stuff. It was very
Yeah.
interesting. But really kind of was just, I was like, "Hey, this is decent money, and I can make a decent living with this company." It was a good company, with stock options and all sorts of stuff, but was like, I really still have this passion for sports, and I feel like I'm missing something. And so I saw this job with the Squadron, Birmingham Squadron, which is the G League team located here in Birmingham, and they were starting the team in 2021. So
Gotcha.
5 years ago, I guess now. Um, and I saw it and I reached out, applied for it, got hired by Felicia Douglas, who now is in New York, doing partnerships in Madison Square Garden. She's awesome. She was one of my mentors. Um, and kind of got started on the ticket sales journey, doing group sales mainly, but the squadron kind of allowed us to do full range, ticket sales, premium suites, floor seats, and then kind of had an interest in partnerships a little bit. And so I started to dive into that a little bit towards the end of that journey in 2022. Um, and then my alma mater had a position. Auburn had a position to go back there and do ticket sales, and so I took that opportunity and was there for a year and a half. Really, obviously loved it. I mean, I love Auburn. It's my school that I support still to this day. Obviously, support UAB, but Auburn
Yeah.
will always be in my heart. But then my girlfriend got accepted to law school at Wake Forest in North Carolina, and so we moved up there to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and started a role with Wake Forest Athletics in a ticket sales capacity. and then kind of, after a year of doing that, it was about 4 years total in ticket sales, and I kind of was like, I like being in sports. I like being around, the game when we get to go, participate in game days and see the atmosphere and everything.
Yeah.
But I still feel like this is not really for me. And I always had an interest in NIL since it became a thing. And I was like, what kind of jobs are out there for NIL? Like, how does this even work? And
Mhm.
by happenstance, I saw a job posted with Learfield and by our general manager here, Greg Wheeler, and reached out to him and was like, "Hey, man, like this is in my hometown. I'm very interested in this. Want to learn more about NIL." Um, and so I got that job here in April of last year. So we're a couple months away from a year. But it is, it's by far, I would say, the best job that I've had to date, and I'm happy in the role, and excited to kind of learn more about the space as I go on. It's changing every day, as I'm sure you're aware, but
Yeah.
yeah, Learfield is a great company. It's the largest multimedia rights partner in the college athletics space. So we have over 150 schools under the Learfield umbrella. Some of the big ones are Texas, Ohio State, Alabama. We had three of the four in the semifinals of the college football playoff. Miami,
Yeah.
who made the championship game, obviously,
Yeah.
was the only
Great
one
game.
not. It was. It was. So yeah, I am happy with where I am, and happy to kind of talk to you about what I know about NIL. And obviously, there's still a lot of questions out there, and I'm sure a lot of changes will be made in the next 10 years. But yeah,
Yeah, no, that's a great journey, and I can do definitely want to dive into more NIL and kind
yeah,
of how that works day to
yeah,
day, what your day to day looks like, and
yeah,
kind of just what you expect to see on a weekly basis when everything's like you said, changing and rules are getting applied everywhere. And
yeah.
I mean, we saw with, or you probably saw with the Washington quarterback. It's like he committed to come back, and then all of a sudden he put his name in the portal, and now he's back again. It's like
Right.
how do you manage all that stuff and just kind of like the ins and outs of stuff that's going to be changing weekly and daily.
Yeah, so Washington is a Learfield school as well. So I need to reach out to them about kind of what that looked like over the last week. But in terms of day to day, I mean, I'm still in a sales role. This is it's kind of a hybrid role. So, basically my day to day is I'm reaching out to local corporations in Birmingham, who hopefully I can educate and get on board to do NIL and true authentic NIL. So that basically means, we're doing stuff for a valid business purpose. It's not pay for play. So, if McDonald's, reach it, or I reached out to McDonald's and they were all on board, they decided to do some NIL with us. Essentially, they are paying us an NIL fund, if you will. Let's just say $10,000. And in return, what they expect is these student athletes to market their brand. So whether that's through social media, through showing up at locations, doing autograph signings, doing a video shoot, for like a commercial, it's really kind of, if you think about any NBA player that you see on TV, like Steph Curry doing the Subway commercials, or it's
Yeah.
endorsement deals essentially for college student athletes. And most of my job is either going out and trying to find companies that want to be a part of UAB and work with our student athletes, as well as once we do sign on those partners, making sure that the student athletes are doing what they're expected to do. So fulfilling what's in the contract.
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of transition to that. How do you get that athlete to fulfill their role or contract
Yeah,
and kind of getting on them? And
yeah,
some guys could just be. I mean, obviously they're getting paid now, so the luxury's there. But I,
right.
I can imagine there's a little pushback, or kind of you got to like push them to keep going and keep doing their due diligence on the
Yeah,
contract.
and I think the good thing about being at a school like UAB is most of our student athletes are very grateful for any opportunity. You're not getting the Arch Mannings of the world, or the Ryan Williams or whatever that are gonna decline a $10,000 deal because 'cause they're already making $1,000,000, $3,000,000, whatever it
Yeah.
is. That's I think I'm fortunate in that sense that we have kids that are, very, they enjoy getting the opportunities to do these things, and, so it's not really too difficult, but I think you also have to rely on the staff. So whether it's the head coach of football or whether it's a guy, Joey Roberts on the football staff that's kind of he just kind of is a do it all. He helps with everything. A general manager of sorts. So just relying on the staff to kind of help you and building those relationships with the staff is really crucial and important to helping build the relationships with the actual student athletes as well.
Yeah, no, it's super important. What do the boundaries look like for, let's say you're going after one company and maybe like an Auburn or another school in your conference is going after the same? Is there any boundaries or like, hey, you can't do this one because another school's doing it? Or is
Yeah,
there anything like that?
and there's not that I'm aware of. We actually a lot of what we rely on. We've got another guy in our office who was under Alabama's Learfield staff for a long time, and he built a lot of relationships over his years there, including with the staff there. And so we rely on a lot of leads from Alabama and from Auburn. I mean, obviously a lot of companies are going to spend more with those two schools because they have a bigger brand. Um, but if they're located here in Birmingham and they're doing something 45 minutes down the road at Tuscaloosa, there's no reason they shouldn't be spending a little bit with us as well and helping us as well. We don't expect them to do what they're doing at an Alabama or an Auburn, but we're kind of grateful to any company that's willing to help us out.
Yeah, for sure. And I could just imagine that they'd want to spread the love as much as you guys want
Yeah,
just
yeah,
them to come in and kind of play a part in that. What does a typical negotiation kind of look like if you're reaching out to, like you said, McDonald's or
yeah,
even just like a local mom and pop?
yeah.
What's that kind of look like?
I mean, so, from it's a different world from ticket sales. Obviously, I was in that world for 4 years, and it was even within ticket sales, it's different from going from the Squadron to Auburn to Wake Forest. All 3 of those places are completely different. At Auburn, you've got a loyal fan base that regardless of whether the team is 5-7 or 9-3, the fans are still bought in and they still wanna come to games. And so to be completely honest, at Auburn, it wasn't really a tough sell. The fans know that they wanted to come to games. With this, it's a little bit different. Partnerships are more relationship focused. I think, candidly, I think ticket sales is a little more transactional. You do build relationships over time, but I think with partnerships, it's a long process. I mean, you have to reach out to somebody and hopefully get a meeting set up, and then from there invite them out to games, show them what it looks like from an asset standpoint of, hey, we could give you some signage here, or we could give you a video board spot or a radio spot. Just kind of show them what they would expect. And then maybe even giving them tours of the facility or meeting some student athletes. So I mean, partnerships can take a long time to develop those relationships and kind of close a deal. But ultimately, what we're trying to tell them is, hey, like we're here to market your business to help you out in the community, and UAB is a vital piece of Birmingham. It's the only school downtown in Birmingham, and the hospital is the 8th largest in the country. So we kind of utilize that and some things about the university to help us bring partners on board.
Yeah, we have a similar. I think we're Learfield as well. We have Jayhawk
Yeah.
Sports Properties where it's the same
Yeah.
thing. It's
Exactly.
basically what you're doing, and I have a good friend over there, and Nate Peterson, who was the director, kind of similar role to you, I believe, but
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
recently left, and he kind of told me that it's all about the long term relationships. Where he mentioned like ticketing sales is definitely a little bit more transactional, and obviously, being in that role, I try not to make it as transactional as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just for the best to kind of keep going and move
Yeah.
on. But how did your roles and ticketing roles and group sales, and how did that kind of propel you to kind of expand more into the NIL space?
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's a really good question. Um, at the squadron, we kind of were able to sell full menu, and so that allowed kind of you talk about group sales specifically, like, in group sales, you're selling to 5 major categories. That's what Felicia said back in the day. I think there were 5 major categories: youth sports, churches, schools, businesses, and nonprofits, I think were the 5. And so from that, when you talk about group sales with businesses, I think that helped me from the get go to be able to kind of find out, hey, I need to be talking to a marketing person or I need to be talking to an HR person. And those are the 2 that are kind of they control the budget, and they kind of can help me in regards to getting a full group out. So it kind of started with the squadron, and then at Auburn, you kind of see what similar to what you said with Jayhawk Sports Properties. You meet some people over there at Auburn who I've got a guy now who's the GM of New Mexico that was at Auburn that I have a good relationship with, and he's kind of gave me some pointers. And then at Wake Forest, met the general manager, Banks Shepard, who kind of told me, hey, like, this is what you should expect. It's going to be a longer sales process. But it's exciting, and Learfield has been adding these NIL roles because it's become such a heavy, important piece to the athletics department. Obviously, we all want to get the highest recruited and the best, you know, players that we can, and NIL right now is the way to do that. But I think the most important thing, that I want to differentiate between NIL and rev share, what you're seeing with these massive contracts. What we are doing as Learfield is we are doing real authentic NILs, meaning, a player is doing something in order to earn that money. They're doing something, a marketing, promotion in order to earn that money. The rev share, which started in July, I don't know how familiar you are with that NCAA versus House settlement.
Yeah.
Basically, that allowed the schools to pay directly now to student
Mm,
athletes. So there's a $20 million cap that the schools can pay from revenue sharing. Our conference, the American Conference, is much lower than that $20 million cap. But, your SEC schools and your Big Ten and all those schools, Big 12, et cetera, are taking full advantage of that 20 million. And then they are also using Learfield to go above the cap to be able to say, hey, Arch Manning, you're getting 6 million already, but you're also going to have all these opportunities with Learfield um, to make an additional 1.5 or whatever it is. So,
yeah,
it's a fascinating world. There definitely need to be some changes, but
I'd agree.
it's fascinating. And like I said, at UAB, we don't have to really deal with most of those $1 million contracts or anything like that. But yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, for sure. And like you mentioned, kind of going against Auburn or just any SEC school or anything like that. How do you kind of differentiate with you being a Group 5 school and like you mentioned, a lesser budget and kind of stuff like that? How do you kind of think of new ways or any creative new ways to kind of get that revenue and get more money into the UAB?
I think it's tough, to be completely honest. I went to Auburn. People in Birmingham, we're 2 hours away from Auburn. We're 45 minutes away from Alabama. When you grow up here, it's kind of one or the other, most of the time. And we have such a medical field focus in Birmingham because of UAB and the hospital, and the it's gained such notoriety for being a great hospital. Um, and so it is tough, just being honest, but I think that the sale is, number 1, we're gonna cost less, right? Like, we're not gonna charge you what an Auburn or an Alabama is, and we're gonna build better relationships because, we have a staff we don't have, 300 different partners that we work with that are spending, $1 million. We've got 90 partners that range from $500 to 250 grand, and we can devote more of our time to you, and make sure that you feel like you're getting your money's worth. But also the other thing is, like, you're in Birmingham, UAB is in Birmingham, support your local school, your local business. Like, we want people to understand you can support Auburn and Alabama, and that's great. But also, if you can give a little bit to UAB, the local school in your community, that helps the community. So
Yeah, I think they say college sports is now a business, and I think it's exactly like
it
that.
is. It
It's like,
is.
would you rather donate to Apple or would you rather donate to the technology company that's just starting up in your city? It's something you want to give back to, and
Yeah.
kind of like you mentioned, local brands and local deals. It just kind of means more, and obviously with the Group 5 school, you're going to get more relationships, and it's not just transactional.
Right. Right. And we have so much going on in Birmingham. It's a big sports town, being in the South, and college football is obviously king. You're seeing Alabama and Auburn made a Final Four run last year. Alabama has been good at basketball since Nate Oates has gotten there, and then we have a coach named Andy Kennedy that played at UAB and coached at Ole Miss, who brings a lot of, he's a very, well known guy around here. Had some history in terms of basketball, making it pretty far in the tournament as well. So, there's a lot of sports interest in Birmingham. We've got an arena called Legacy Arena that we're hosting the American Conference tournament. Um, they hosted the NCAA tournament, I think, 2 years ago, hosting it again in another 2 years. So there's just a lot going on in terms of sports here, and we want people to buy into the local, aspect of, hey, if you're a sports fan, this is how you gain full access and donate back to your community.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And you're seeing that like kind of the spread of even just good teams and like Power Four, like Indiana, for instance, in football, it's like they were 0 and 12 2 years
Yeah,
ago, 3 years
yeah,
ago, and now all of a sudden, just with some support and local support, I guess. I think Mark Cuban's kind of funding all that, but
yeah.
um, just like the local support and alumni support, anything can happen, and you're kind of seeing that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. We don't have any Mark Cubans or Tim Cooks down at Auburn, but we do have donors with wealth and that own some local businesses. A lot of our clients are locally owned, or they are affiliated with UAB in some capacity. So it's great to see that. We just want to build on it and be able to showcase that, hey, regardless of what happens on the field, we had a rough year in football. Like, we have a lot going on. We just signed Alex Mortensen on full time as a head coach for football, and he's got a lot of potential. Worked under Nick Saban for, I think it was 9 seasons.
It's a
um,
good tree to pull from.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, he's 40 years old. He's got a lot of time in this coaching space. And we think he's going to be, hopefully he'll turn our program around and then get an opportunity. And that's another thing as well. Like, we are okay with having kids come in here that develop like a Yaxel Lindeborg, who was a absolute stud for us. I think he was the American Conference Defensive Player of the Year in the conference tournament. I think he got 30 points and 20 rebounds in a game or something. And now he's at Michigan, who's another Learfield school, and he's getting paid well. And we're supportive of that. We want kids to come in here and grow, and then be able to do what's best for them in the
Yeah.
long run.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's like I saw a quote. I forgot what coach said it. It's basically where like Group 5 is kind of a feeder to
Yeah,
Power Fours, and honestly, I mean, yeah, in that case, it is true. It's like you get a top talent like that, and then you got to do what's best for yourself. And if that's going to a big
yeah,
school like Michigan, then I'll be. And that's I'm glad that you can see the support from that university too. It's not like, oh, he just left to with the money. It's
yeah,
like you're supporting him because you know it's best for himself. So I think that's
yeah.
really cool that you mentioned that.
And he's a good kid. I actually started after he left, but from what I heard, he was a good kid. And like I said, I continue to reiterate that, of like, we have kids here that are truly grateful for any opportunity, and I got into the NIL world as what, in ticket sales, you're making an impact on the fans, providing them with a good experience. But I wanted to make an impact on coaching staffs and on student athletes and these kids' lives. So
Yeah.
hope that I'm doing that. I've built some good relationships with some kids here already, but yeah.
Is that your most satisfying, like, kinda moment in your job is just making that impact?
Yeah, I think that's definitely up there for sure. Being honest, in the world of sales, like, it feels really good when you sign a contract as well. Like, when you are finally able to kind of get to that point where you've built the relationship and the person trusts you enough to spend their money with you, like, that feels really good. I mean, we've got, like I said, we have some big clients. Not none of mine spend over six figures, but hopefully one day I'll get to that point where I sign something that's in the six figure category, and I can feel accomplished and great about that. Not that I don't about these younger contracts, but or smaller contracts, but I'm it feels really good in the sales world to be able to close business.
Yeah, for sure. What's that, like, failed relation or failed, partnerships look like?
I mean, we had our biggest client was a Alabama State client in the medical field that we lost out on, and it was a $2.8 million client, and we lost them, and those are things you can't control. It was a government thing that they lost funding and had to make some cuts, and they chose not to do sports marketing, and that was another one that you know they worked with Alabama and Auburn as well, so they were contributing to every school in the state, and they just couldn't do it based on what was going on. So it's I think you have to realize in sales that some things are just not in your control, and it's nothing that you did personally. It's just the nature of the beast, and you move on to the next. Um, so what we can control is basically how well we manage that relationship, provide the things that we said we were going to provide in the contract, and then going above and beyond to make sure that they're really satisfied and that you feel like you've almost built friendships with these clients. So that's all you can do.
Yeah, I think I'm learning that right now with every failure. It's just on to not on to the next, but, like, I was getting starting out, I was getting down on
Yeah.
myself when something went bad or it didn't work out, and it's just kinda like, "Hey, it's just the nature of the game, and you're not gonna go 100% on sales or partnerships like that." So I think just learning and growing, I feels like is kinda the main aspect of sales.
Yeah, for sure. And it still happens even the further you get along in your journey. I got upset about one when I first started because I was like, wow, this has a chance to be a really big one. And the conversation sounded like they were trending in the right direction. And then all of a sudden, hey, Josh, sorry, we can't do it. Maybe in the future. And I got pretty down about it, but I think you have to rely on the people around you as well. You got to have a good support system of coworkers and a good boss to be able to say like, hey, it happens. You don't
Yeah.
get down on it. Just pick yourself up. We'll try again with the next one, and it'll probably happen again, right? But like you have to just realize eventually you're going to land the diamond in the rough that you never thought would do anything with you, and all of a sudden they're spending six figures, and you know that's just it is kind of a luck thing at times. So um, yeah, just something you learn.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely learn and still learning. Josh, I just have a couple more questions. I appreciate the time here today. I asked this with everyone I kind of entered or had a conversation with, but what's been the most pivotal moment or stop that you've had in your career that kind of gave you like an aha moment or just kind of like, hey, that just turned my vision or kind of what I wanted to do around.
Yeah, I mean, I think the squadron was a good opportunity for me to kind of learn that I do want to be in sports, and it was a good opportunity to kind of we put together a lot of theme nights in group sales, and we did an MLK Junior Day, surrounded theme where we got Ruben Studdard, who was on American Idol, who was from Birmingham, to come sing the national anthem.
Nice.
We kind of blew it all out, and we got $10,000 from a local church to sponsor the whole night. We had, I think it was 4,000 or 5,000 people in attendance, which at the time was one of our higher attended games in that first year. And that was something that I really was proud of. It was something that I collectively worked on with my boss, my former boss, Felicia, and a couple coworkers. And, we did things the right way. We produced it well. We built those relationships, and, that was something that I was really proud of, to see the finished result of the fans enjoying it. Um, Integrating the local community. I think we had 14 churches that were involved in raising that
Nice.
10 grand.
Nice.
And they kind of came together. Sometimes churches can be like, well, we don't really, they're a different type of church than us. We don't really want to, you know, but we kind of got brought everybody together to realize, hey, this is a special night that we can make, if we work together, and we were able to. And so that was something that I was really proud of. And then, I think my time at Wake Forest here recently in 24, just realizing that, hey, I think the ticket sales journey for me is probably done. Like, I like sports. I love sports, but I want to make a bigger impact. And I think just realizing that in my time at Wake Forest was something that ultimately, you know, will help me in this NIL role, and in my future endeavors as well.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, and yeah, to hear the churches all come together for that night. For the what was it?
MLK
Yeah,
Jr. Yeah.
yeah, MLK Junior Day. That's really cool. And real quick, what's it like to just start up a whole franchise like that? Having to sell for, you said,
Yeah.
5 different aspects.
Yeah.
How's that just? I
I
mean, it's got
was
to just be from ground up. Like, how does that work?
yeah. I was one of the last hires on the sales team for that first year. And when I started, it was the Birmingham basketball team, and we didn't have a logo, we didn't have a team name, and we were literally calling on folks saying, "Hey, like, we're starting a G League team here." Had to explain what the G League was. Um, didn't have anything to really provide to them in regards to a logo or a team name or anything like that, and we just, it was a journey. We finally kind of came up with some mock-ups of what the fans wanted to see from a logo standpoint and the team name. And then we also, I think in that first year, maybe the second year, we had the Pelicans and the Hawks come down for a preseason game in Birmingham, and we had Trey Young there. We had,
Nice.
who's obviously not there anymore, but we
Yeah.
had Trey Young. We had uh, Brandon Ingram was on the Pelicans, and I think Zion Williamson came, but I couldn't remember. But that was a big deal, to be able to, and we were able to sell that as well. And so, that was a good chance for us to kind of showcase, like, hey, basketball is serious in Birmingham, and we can have a semi-pro team here. And it was a really cool experience to be able to go through that process and be a part of that. And we ended up having 3 of our sales team, and it would have been 4 had he not left, that were in the top 5 in sales across the entire G League. So it was a really special year in that first year. And then, you know, got the call to come to Auburn, so I wasn't going to turn that down.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't. With you being an alum, you can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, no, that's awesome to hear. I mean, it's like finding baseball and like, or what's it called, up in like where the World Series, Little League World Series is. Like, you're just finding a special place to find like a sport there, and in your case Birmingham, and then you're just showing it off and seeing teams come down, like you mentioned, the Hawks and Pelicans, and it
Yeah.
seemed like a huge success.
Yeah, it was. We sold it out. We had to physically put T-shirts on every single seat in the arena, which was, I think it was a 17,000 person capacity,
It's a
and
long
that
afternoon.
it took. I think it took 2 afternoons. There were only probably 25 of us putting the shirts out, so it took a long time, but it was worth it in the end. to kind of see what we had produced, and um, it was well worth it.
Mhm, mhm. Last, question I guess I have is what advice would you give to someone maybe in your shoes 10 years ago or when you were graduating or kinda coming out of college and grad school? What advice would you share for someone that's just looking to get into sports or,
Yeah,
just kinda putting their toes in the water?
I would say find out what you want to do in the sports world, and start earlier than I did. I think like I didn't intern at all at Auburn in undergrad. I didn't intern like doing any sports related stuff, even though I knew I loved sports and wanted to eventually get into it. I just was kind of trying to get through college and, you know, figure it out from there. And I think like knowing what you want to do, or at least having an idea, and kind of going through some different internships while you're in college. Um, that maybe are summer long or fall long or whatever it may be, so that you can kind of realize like, I think for me, if I looking back on it, if I had made a decision a little bit quicker about the ticket sales, then I didn't really want to go down that path. It would have, maybe I would have been at a, a higher stage by now, or whatever the case may be. Ultimately, I'm grateful for where I am, and I know that I'm gonna, get somewhere in this industry, and I'm confident in myself in that way. But I think I wish I would have done a little bit more while I was in college, and then tried to make a decision on kind of what avenue, what route I wanted to take, because there are so many different avenues in sports. Whether you're in college or the pros or semi pros or whatever, there's so many different things. Whether it's ticket sales, marketing, sponsorships, communications, going like and working for an actual team, like on in taking a coaching route. So there's so many different things, and I think if I kind of explored some internships while I was at Auburn, that what probably would have helped me figure things out a little quicker.
Yeah. You think you'll stay in, collegiate sports or
I do. I think it'll depend a lot on my girlfriend, who I hope to marry. And kind of she's going to be a lawyer, so you can kind of do that anywhere. But at the same time, I think she wants to be in a big enough city to be able to do her thing, and so obviously there's going to be some compromise there. But yeah, I I I, I love college athletics. I think I've always kind of being in the South, like it's been more of a passion for me. Not that I'm not a Atlanta pro fan, because that's kind of the closest city that had pro sports, but yeah,
Yeah, I think it just means more in college. It's like having been in it for, I guess, a year now. I think it just kind of means more, and the relationships kind of build more. And when you're having that relationship with a sponsor or just a donor, I think it just kind of means more when it's their either their alumni or they're just kind of close to home school, like you mentioned. I think
yeah,
it just means more for college.
yeah, for sure. I would agree with that, and I'm happy, like I said, with where I'm at, and I see myself kind of either sticking in the NIL space. I'm really enjoying it and kind of just growing and learning more and more about it as the years go on, or thought about the sports agency side, as it's becoming a kind of a trend. And most of my best friends and also my girlfriend are lawyers or in that field, and so like I kind of have the contracts piece covered. They know what they're talking about with
Yeah,
contracts
yeah.
negotiation, and
You got an ace in your back pocket right there.
yeah.
It's your
So
girlfriend.
I've talked to her and my friends about potentially one day opening up an agency, but right now I'm happy and learning a lot. GM here is terrific, best GM in the company. No offense
Nice.
to the rest, but so yeah, I'm loving what I'm doing, and college athletics I think has got me hooked for a long time.
Yeah, do what you love what you do.
That's right.
I think that's what college sports is all about. Josh, I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah,
Appreciate you taking the time for me, unknown LinkedIn DM, but I
yeah, man.
appreciate it. Appreciate it. Appreciate connecting, and yeah, all the knowledge and everything I'll take, and hopefully posts and others will take too. And yeah, I appreciate everything, Josh.
Yeah, man. Let me know if you need anything. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Try to learn
Yeah,
from people in different spaces. Find out what your path may be, and you're still young. Got a lot of opportunity to grow and figure out what you want to do in the world of whether it's college sports or pro sports or whatever you want to do. So
yeah,
pursue it.
yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it, Josh.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Thanks for everything, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, sounds good, Ryan. Have a good
See-
weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.